Hello and welcome to the Homeschool with Moxie podcast. I'm your host, Abby Banks, and this is episode 333. If you've ever felt unsure about how to teach your kids to read, or you're worried that phonics lessons are going to be really overwhelming or boring, you are not alone. Today, I'm talking with Melanie Jeffrey, who is the host of the Homeschool Phonics podcast. She's also a reading coach that helps homeschool moms. So today, we're going to talk about when to start teaching phonics, what to focus on, how to keep your kids engaged, and what to do if you hit a bump in the road. Because this happens to all of us, teaching reading is simple, yet it can still be challenging. So I hope this conversation leaves you encouraged and equipped with practical strategies to take you from overwhelmed to confident as you teach phonics in your homeschool. Remember, the show notes are at 4onemore.com/333, where we will link to everything that Melanie has to offer. So enjoy this conversation with Melanie Jeffrey of the Homeschool Phonics podcast. Melanie, thank you so much for joining us today on the Homeschool with Moxie podcast.
Well, Abby, it's a pleasure to meet you, and I am honored to be on your podcast, Homeschool with Moxie. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, of course. Well, before we jump into this topic that you know quite a lot about, can you just give us a little peek into your life? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. I'm a mom married to a wonderful man named Bill, and I've got three, I guess they're young adult children now, 18, 19, and 20. I am a former kindergarten through grade 2 core literacy teacher who taught in the public school system for 10 plus years before becoming an online phonics coach for moms. So I help homeschool moms of beginning kindergarten through grade 2 readers and moms of struggling 3rd to 5th grade readers who may be attending the public school system in a classroom setting confidently model simple phonics skills so that her child can become a strong and successful reader. Experience and formal training in phonics instruction for the younger kiddos in kindergarten through grade 2 has taught me that phonics skills modeled the correct way for kids, practiced and reviewed from basic phonics skills to more complex phonics skills is the key to unlocking your child's success as a reader. And as a classroom teacher who has used phonics to lead hundreds of children to read with success, I am excited to share what I've learned with moms teaching their kiddos to read at home.
Yeah, this can be a very stressful topic for new homeschool moms with the kindergartner and the first grader. And they're like, this is like in their minds, it's like a big hurdle because it is like, this is foundational. We've got to get them reading. We got to get them a good start. So when you talk to moms now with all your experience of teaching in the classroom, like, when do you think is the best time to start teaching phonics? Is it kindergarten? Is it earlier? Like, what do you think? Some people like try to push it super early, but I don't know if that's necessarily the best idea.
Yeah, no, I think that your child will know. Your child will show you when he or she is ready to begin reading instruction. When they're asking, "Hey, mom, what does that say? Mom, how do I spell daddy? How do I spell mom?" When they start showing an interest in playing with magnetic letters on the fridge, take that as a natural lead-in opportunity to help them spell their name. Children are very interested in their names. Now, sometimes we push our kids to read too early and we're met with resistance, or they're just not interested, or maybe they're just not at a developmental stage where they're ready to absorb all of that information, the phonics skills, the sound to symbol relationships that are so vital for young learners beginning to read.
So when we start to think, okay, my child is ready to learn how to read, they are showing interest. When we jump in, like, where do we start? Do we have to start with the full alphabet first? Like, is there a certain, order we need to do this? How do we start teaching phonics? Where do we start?
Right. Great question, Abby. And this is a question I get often. So it's great to have exposure to alphabet letters and songs when your child is in, pre-K, ages 4 and 5. But no, your child does not actually have to know the entire alphabet. So sometimes that can be a mistake, waiting for so long for them to remember all of those 26 letter names and the 26 matching sounds that go with them. Your child can learn to read knowing just 4 sounds and 4 matching letters. Literally, when you think of the CVC word, and we call CVC word stands for consonant, vowel, consonant. So with the basic alphabetic principle, single consonant B spells B, D spells D, and the short vowel sounds A spells A, E spells Ah. If your child, for example, knows four letters, M, A, S, and T, M spells A spells A, S spells S, and T spells T, your child can learn to read the words cat, right? When they know the letter C, mat, um, tam, right? Tas, sat. So just mixing up the beginning letter sounds and the ending consonant sounds and the short vowel a in the middle, your child can already read 4 to 5 words, and that's just how simple it can be. So instead of belaboring, waiting until they've memorized the entire alphabet and all of those 26 sounds, you can get them started reading right away, knowing just 4 letters and 4 sounds. So good.
That is very helpful because it takes a bit of the pressure away. Anyone can teach 4 sounds and get their kids learning how to put those together. That really does. And it was so long ago I taught my kids to read. I'm forgetting all how like it actually isn't, yeah, as crazy as we make it sometimes. So you're right. It's just very simple. That's helpful. 4 sounds and you can start. So are there some simple phonics skills that homeschool moms will find helpful when we're teaching our kids to read? Let's get real practical with strategies or whatever. What are some simple skills that we need to know?
Yes, and these are the 6 simple phonics skills that I touch on inside my course, Teach Your Child to Read, Confidently Model Simple Phonics Skills at Home. So the first is phonemic awareness. Now, stay with me. This is just a fancy phonics term that teachers use for sound awareness. And no, your child does not need to have gross or fine motor skills in place yet. This is an oral activity. This is something simple you could do in the car. So, for example, I'm the mom and I'm going to say 3 sounds spaced apart, and I'm just going to get my child to orally listen and say that whole word out loud. So, for example, if I'm the mom, we're driving along, and I would say, a, t. Okay, kiddo, what word is that? At, cat. Great job. Let's try another word. B, it, t. What's the word? Bit. Great job. So that is a very simple, just a listening, an oral speaking and listening activity that you can do with your child. Another simple phonics skill that you can do, say and spell. So as a mom, you can say a letter sound, spell This is very basic, but we're after that quick automatic recall. A spells a. Mom, you can say the sound All right, kiddo, what? Show me the letter. If your child is struggling with fine motor skills, they can use magnetic letters and they'll drag up the M to show that they can associate. M spells another simple phonics skill that moms can teach their kiddos for that quick recall of those sound symbol relationships, which letter says what sound, is to show show your child a letter. Mom, you're going to drag up a magnetic letter or just write a letter on the board. Let's say we're working with the letter S. Okay, what does this letter say? And your child just says, S. What does this letter say? Drag up a T. T. Great job. So we're after that quick recall. And after your child has those simple phonics skills in place, your child is ready to add letters to blend to read words. So we call this blending. Very simple. We just did an example of oral blending in the car. Cat. Okay, so now you're going to show your child 3 letters, alphabet letters, or just drag the magnetic letters up on the tray, and CAT. Okay, what does C say? What does A say? A. And what does T say? Cat. Cat, and your child has just read their first word. And that's really exciting because if your child can read a word, they can read a sentence, which is just words strung together. So beginning with those consonant, vowel, consonant words, for example, CAT spells cat, BIT spells bit, etc.
I think some of the things you're mentioning maybe are the ways we keep our kids engaged, like those manipulatives, those magnetic letters. They really do help the kids not become like disengaged, right? Like, is that the main strategy for keeping kids engaged, is adding the magnetic things and adding them things they can touch and feel and move? Are there any other ways that you keep kids engaged while you're starting this process?
Yeah, great question, Abby. So yes, you are correct. High engagement, right, equals higher retention and that quick recall. So using magnetic letters is a fun way to engage kids. They love to slide them. They're magnetic. What child doesn't like to use those? I like to use a whiteboard marker. They come in all kinds of fun colors. If your child has the fine motor skills that developmentally appropriate, that they can be writing the letters on the whiteboard. Another engagement strategy we like to use for the example of doing the sounds in the car is to have your child put their hands together, and we call these their chopper hands. And the opposite of you doing the individual sounds, mom, is for you to say a whole word. And your child's going to take her little chopper hands and she's going to split the sounds apart. For example, the word him. Mom, you say the whole word him, and your child's going to chop it apart. Eh, So, and there's another strategy that's fun we use in the classroom sometimes, and the boys really like this one. It's when you punch it out. So make a fist, and you're going to just gently punch it out. Huh, eh, mm. So these are definitely ways that keep the engagement strong and keep the phonics, keep the pace of your lessons quick. I say phonics in 17 minutes or less because your kiddo is going to be squirming at the table. Definitely keeping them engaged is key to retaining the learning.
Yeah, short lessons. And that's the beauty of homeschooling. We're not managing a whole classroom of kids and this is all, getting out of hand. Like we've got the one kid in front of us, so we can be so efficient and get that done quickly. And I love the you're kind of getting the body, the movement. I've talked to some other guests I've had on talking about phonics and like just getting the body involved, which is like your example of the chopping or the punching, like that feeling getting it in them, and that's engaging too, and just engaging them in that way. I love that. So are there any other materials we need to teach phonics at home? You mentioned the whiteboard, you mentioned like maybe magnetic letters. Are there any other things that parents need to do a good job with this?
Yes, and mom or dad, you need a curriculum. And I think for homeschool moms and dads in particular, there can be curriculum overwhelm. There are so many great phonics curriculums. I think at some point you need to choose one, right? And you need to just implement it. And if it doesn't, work the first time, we'll give it a few more tries. And you need what we call a scope and sequence. A scope just means an overview of which phonics skills you're going to be teaching in kindergarten at home or grade 1 at home or grade 2 at home. And the sequence simply means the order. So what am I teaching my child in the phonics program and in what order, from simple phonics skills or basic skills to more complex? And most curriculums should have that just inside the front cover. So you need to know what you're teaching and you need to know when I should be teaching it. So that's an important look for when homeschool parents are choosing curriculum for sure.
Let's jump into some challenges and struggles, because on the surface it seems easy enough, but we all know if we've taught even one kid to read and then you try to teach the next kid, they're, sometimes they're totally different. They don't, grasp it in the same way. Every kid is a unique learner. But I'm going to guess, and now tell me if I'm right or wrong. So I know there must be common mistakes that parents make. And I think I maybe heard you mention one, which I've thought of too, is like thinking they have to be able to write the letters before they're reading, right? Sometimes we're like, oh, I'm teaching you how to read. Like we also need to be able to write it, but that's a totally different skill, right? That's fine motor skills. Some of the kids, I mean, they're ready to read probably before they're really ready to write very well, right? The physical act of writing. So is that one of the common mistakes parents make, is thinking that these things have to go hand in hand, writing and reading?
Yes, it certainly can be. And that's why we touch on the oral phonemic awareness or just the sound awareness, that activity that you can do in your car, because phonemic awareness is vital. Because if your child can orally, that's hearing and saying, if your child can orally segment sounds in a word, and by that I mean, I say the word cut, and my child can listen to my word, and we're not using any letters yet, we're just in the car. And if she can orally segment, that means break that word into its smallest units of sound, k, a, t. Then when you add the letters, she already has that segmenting skill in place, which is a precursor for accurate spelling. So really, really important activity. And she's just going to match that sound, and she's going to write that letter and she's going to be able to accurately spell the word cut because she has that oral phonemic awareness, that oral segmenting of a simple consonant vowel consonant word, a CVC word, into its smallest units of sound, which the fancy phonics term is called phonemes. Moms and dads, you can certainly use the word letter sound for that.
Hmm. So, what if I've already taught my child to read, but they're still struggling? And I know we personally had this in our homeschool, right? Every kid is different. I think, oh, I did this with your brother. You should learn the same way. And they're not. And sometimes kids struggle more than others. So, what do we do at that point? At what point do we, go back and start over? Do we have to supplement? Do we assume there's a learning disability? Like, what do we do?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that can be multifaceted, right? So when we're teaching phonics instruction, that works for the typical learner. So for the child who, barring any learning challenges or any learning disorders, such as dyslexia, should in time be able to learn and retain and recall those phonics skills to decode and read words. If your child is struggling, then yes, it would be time to have a quick reading assessment. And that sounds big, but really just checklist. Does my child know all of the letter sounds in the alphabet? B spells B, D spells D. Can your child quickly recall those sound syllable relationships? Now, when you get beyond kindergarten and you're in mid-grade one, it can get a little tricky because the phonics skills become slightly more advanced. You're working with long vowel teams, right? The short E spells is very simple because you're just using the letter E represents one sound. Vowel teams are a more complex phonics skill that you may need to go back and revisit with your child. Perhaps they just haven't seen it enough. Perhaps it wasn't correctly modeled, or maybe they just need more review, more time to practice, more reinforcement. Because when you think of like the long vowel E sound, how do we spell that? Are there multiple ways to spell that? EE spells E in the word sleep. EA spells E in the word leaf. EY spells long E at the end of the word monkey. Y spells long E at the end of a two syllable word like happy. So sometimes our kids just need more practice with those more complex phonics skills. So yes, there are times to go back and revisit. I've often asked parents, let's maybe get a simple vision test. Let's get a simple hearing test. And if your child is not able to quickly recall letter sound symbol relationships, and the sounds and symbols just are not sticking, it could be a form of dyslexia. Now, dyslexia is a spectrum. Your child could have very mild dyslexia, with which, rinse and repeat, phonics skill, rinse and repeat, right? And eventually it will stick. So those are some strategies that parents can try to support their struggling readers at home.
Hmm. So, talk to the homeschool mom who's listening, who is teaching kids to read right now, and she's struggling with self-doubt. She's like, am I doing this right? What encouragement do you have for her? Like, how does, is it like the long view, like stop getting stuck in the daily grind? Is it part of that's the issue? I don't know. Do you have some encouragement for that mom?
Yeah, sure. And I know that when we hit self-doubt as a homeschool mom, I hear like, well, where do I even start? Like, but I'm not trained as a teacher. Am I even doing this right? Moms, you were not meant to know everything, right? Even trained teachers in a kindergarten through grade two classroom, they just didn't start knowing how to teach phonics. They were trained. They had instruction in that and how to teach phonics skills to kids. And any parent can learn how to teach phonics. Phonics is not new. It's been repackaged in multiple curriculums, but there's nothing new about phonics. And mom, you can learn simple phonics skills to confidently teach your child to read. So if you're interested in knowing more, come on over and check out my course. It's called Teach Your Child to Read, Confidently Model Simple Phonics Skills at Home. Now, this is not a curriculum. Think of this as in-service phonics training for moms, teaching their kiddos to read at home. And I believe we are after peaceful homeschool. Moms, when you feel at peace, when you know that you have a deeper understanding of phonics and you can identify that phonics skill that you are teaching your child in your curriculum, I think that you're going to feel at peace and that that could be really helpful. And by all means, come on over and check out the Phonics Rules for Kids podcast. Join me each Monday over there where I share phonics tips and tricks for moms teaching their kiddos to read at home.
I was going to say, yeah, like when mom is stressed, it's not a good time to teach a lesson because the kids feel stressed. It's like, no, you need to do your own research, learn, see what you need to know, and then calmly do the lesson, the short lesson, right? We don't want to add that extra stress that's might already be there while the kids are learning. But let's re-mention your podcast. So it's the Homeschool Phonics podcast. How often does that come out?
So that's every Monday. It's a weekly
Okay.
podcast. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Perfect. Perfect. And so moms will get like detailed, like here's how you teach this topic. Here's how you teach this thing. Is that like through reading, or what can they expect over there?
yeah, podcast is pretty tactical and practical. We talk about the long vowel teams. I've got episodes on phonemic awareness, which is that oral segmenting skill that we talked about in today's conversation, and the oral drill. It's all over there on the podcast, so do come check that out. Phonics
Perfect.
Skills for Kids.
Perfect. And then I know you have a free homeschool kindergarten phonics guide that we will link to in the show notes. What is that and who's that for? What will parents find there?
Yeah, so come on over and check out the guide. It's called Teach Your Child to Read, even if you're not a teacher. So that inside the guide, I lay out the 6 simple phonics skills that you need to know, homeschool mom, when you're teaching your kiddo to read. And I feel that having knowledge of these simple phonics skills will lessen your frustration. And Abby, I really like what you touched on. Homeschool moms being in the right frame of mind and having a positive mindset. And listen, moms, as a teacher, we're going into a classroom, as a former teacher going into a classroom of 20 kids, we all have things that weigh on us, right? We don't wake up feeling the same way every day. And, sometimes before heading to school, I'm like, you've got some concerns and you have your personal life happening. And, I made a commitment as a teacher that I'm going to show up and I'm going to be enthusiastic for these kids no matter how I feel. And I feel that at home, maybe that's a little more challenging. So just step back, take a deep breath, take a moment to pray, right? Lord, help my mindset today. And you've given me these precious kiddos and I have a job to do, and help me to do it to the best of my ability. And just take a deep breath and know that, mom, you are your child's first and best teacher. So keep up the great work.
Yes, absolutely. Well, you have so much good information over on your site and your podcast, so we will send moms over there. But thank you, Melanie, for joining us today and helping us through this topic.
Well, thank you, Abby, so much for having me. My pleasure.
Thank you so much to Melanie Jeffrey for joining me today and sharing her practical wisdom of how to teach phonics at home. I hope you're walking away with a lot of actionable strategies and some encouragement. Check out her site, which is phonicsrulesforkids.com. Don't forget to check out the show notes at 41more.com/333. Thanks for joining us today. And in the meantime, happy homeschooling.